Hey folks, hope you're all doing well out there. Now that the election is over and the Senate runoffs have been completed here in Georgia, I think it's a good time for us to talk about Brian Kemp. Brian Kemp's time as governor here has been an unmitigated disaster, marked by an out of control pandemic, uptick in violence and police brutality, and a complete abandonment of the state's teachers. Over 11,000 Georgians have died during this crisis, and the state currently has some of the highest hospitalization rates in the country, with 272 new patients a day. Kemp stole his position as governor, and now he refuses to govern. For some background, Kemp ran on a very conservative platform, vowing to keep guns legal, ban abortion, and deport immigrants.
I got a big truck, just in case I need to round up criminal illegals and take them home myself. Yep, I just said that.
The man posed in a room full of firearms while pointing one at a teenager.
For the Second Amendment, sir.
We're gonna get along just fine.
Brian Kemp for governor.
Kemp's run for governor was contentious due to the fact that he was the Secretary of State at the time, and as Secretary of State, he oversaw Georgia elections. While he could have resigned from his role, Kemp insisted that he could ethically keep his position of influence over the governor's election while running as a candidate. Naturally, he abused the position in his favor. Kemp erroneously leaked voter information, rejected help from the Department of Homeland Security for election security, and purged more than 200,000 voter registrations. He also delayed the registration of 53,000 voters, 70% of whom were black. Kemp squeaked by with a 50.2% majority against Stacey Abrams. Presumably, Kemp thought he'd have a cushy time being Trump's yes man in a very conservative state. But Trump's unpredictability combined with an out-of-control pandemic are quickly becoming Kemp's downfall. Now, I'm sure a lot of you remember, Georgia was one of the first states to reopen, ignoring the White House's incredibly lax guidelines. This actually brought the ire of Trump onto Brian Kemp, an embarrassing situation for him that would soon prove deadly for Georgians.
Frankly, I didn't like to see a lot of things happening, and I wasn't happy with it, and I wasn't happy with Brian Kemp.
Kemp has said multiple times that he would not support a mask mandate for the state, which was not surprising. What was surprising was that he banned other municipalities from enforcing any sort of mask ordinance, going as far as attempting to sue Mayor Bottoms for enacting one in Atlanta. This decision was not based on any scientific merit. Remember, Kemp famously remarked in April that he had just learned about asymptomatic spread of the virus, despite that information being publicly available for months.
What we've been telling people from directives from the CDC for weeks now, that if you start feeling bad, stay home. Those individuals could have been infecting people before they ever felt bad. Well, we didn't know that until the last 24 hours. And as Dr. Toomey
And now that brings us to one of the state's biggest fiascos, the completely botched reopening of schools. Some metro Atlanta counties like Cobb and Fulton opted for virtual learning to begin their semesters. Many counties further out from the city did face-to-face reopenings, and the results were predictable. Days after Cherokee schools reopened, 1,200 students and staff had to be quarantined due to exposure. Photos of crowded hallways at a Paulding County school went viral, resulting in the temporary suspension of the student who posted them. 9 people at the school tested positive for the virus, and they had to switch back to online learning.
6 students and 3 staff members at North Paulding High School have tested positive for COVID-19. The school says they were all in the building at the same time last week.
Several weeks later, teachers in one of the biggest metro Atlanta counties were being forced back into classrooms to teach virtual and in-person students. Personal protective gear for staff was basically non-existent. And due to the fact that there were many resignations and staff becoming sick, a lot of teachers found themselves with increasing workloads during an already difficult time. And now, because of the indifference of Kemp and Cobb County School Board, 3 teachers have died in that county. There are currently over 3,000 active cases in the Cobb County school system. Throughout this time, Kemp insisted that the schools needed to reopen. After schools were forced to close their doors again, he withdrew his lawsuit against Mayor Bottoms, but still balked at the idea of a statewide mask mandate. A leaked report revealed that Georgia was suffering from the highest rate of new infections, which Kemp dismissed as pandemic politics. Now, this was despite the fact that it was coming from the White House Coronavirus Task Force and being backed up by Georgia Tech researchers.
Deaths in Georgia per capita last week also double the national average. Governor Brian Kemp says that per capita snapshot is not the complete picture.
To scare people with one number is not fair to the general public. That is not the only number that Georgians need to look at.
Kemp has also allowed the virus to spread like wildfire through Georgia's prisons. Inmates in Valdosta State Prison were subjected to days of isolation in their cells, lack of testing and treatment, and unsanitary conditions. Wheeler Correctional Facility, a prison operated by Core Civic, had 145 new cases confirmed late summer. Conditions in Ware State Prison led to a riot that injured inmates and guards. Now, around 50,000 people are incarcerated in the state of Georgia, and about half of those individuals are black. I'm going to address the state of policing in Georgia in another video where we'll go more into detail about incarceration here, police murders, and the uptick in violence in Atlanta. The end result of Kemp's loyalty to Trump has been a Georgia Republican Party in complete disarray after claims of a rigged election and criticisms levied against Secretary of State Raffensperger. Now, the real tragedy for Georgians is the fact that we're now dying at a rate of 133 people per day. Meanwhile, the vaccine rollout has been botched, meaning the most vulnerable among us are still waiting to get shots. 5,000 new cases a day are popping up, but thanks in part to the criminal negligence of our governor, many still won't mask up here. Brian Kemp's legacy deserves to be one remembered for death, dishonesty, and cruelty amid a crisis. In Georgia, we will still be suffering from his decisions for years to come.